Hello, I'm Mark Uncapher sitting in for Casey Aiken. This is 21 This Week. Coming up next, should Montgomery County require vaccine passports? Among Maryland candidates for governor, who's ahead in the race for campaign dollars? Is the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission breaking ethics rules? Our panel of insiders will give you the story behind the story. We're joined by civic activist Cary Lamari and Nicolee Ambrose, Republican National Committeewoman. Stay tuned for these stories and more on 21 This Week next. Welcome back to 21 This Week. This past week, the Montgomery County Council heard testimony about implementing a vaccine passport. According to press accounts, the testimony was lopsidedly against it, but the county council expects to decide later this month. Cary, can the county administer something like this? If you've gotten a booster or it's been 6 months since your last jab, should the passport expire?
You know what? This new passport is mind-boggling to me. The fact of the matter is, just because you've had your vaccine and the booster doesn't mean you can't get Omicron. Omicron is highly transmissible. Not to mention, young children can't get the vaccine. We all live with them. We're not going to isolate our children, our 5-year-olds. You know, I think what the passport does is it creates a false sense of security, and could do more harm than good. You know, it's just a problem. It's problematic. It's filled with problems. And not to mention, are our policemen, you know, how much more do you want to ask?
Well, Nicolee, Cary just brought up a good point that you can, still transmit it even though you've been vaccinated. So what do you make of this county council proposal?
Apparently, Montgomery County doesn't want anyone to come visit businesses and restaurants in Montgomery County anymore, because I might be vaccinated, but I am certainly not presenting my papers to go anywhere. It's a very slippery slope. If you do it for one thing, the government can require it of anything else of you in the future. But I have to say, my opinion is Omicron is here. Well, COVID is here to stay. Omicron has completely cut out the legs of any intellectual argument about vaccine passports, because as you said, you can get or give it regardless of being vaccinated. But the key point is, this is not like the polio vaccine that totally eradicated the disease in this country. Since you can get or give it, there's no logical reason to say, you're limited in your exposure to everyday life with or without the vaccine.
Well, it's interesting. So the council is pursuing this. They're not indicating as to where they are going to come out. Cary, you got any predictions as to what the council will decide? I mean, we heard where you stand on it. We've also heard where lots of people testimony, but the council.
With this council, it's hard to tell. I mean, honestly, they think they're doing the right thing. But the reality is, when we wanted to get people to quit smoking, how do we do it? Did we lock them up? Did we make them, forcibly try to do it? No, you have to create incentives. You have to create a program where we explain that it's problematic, and people should take more responsibility. And unfortunately, that's not what's happening here. Look, I'm a fan of the masks. I'm a fan of vaccinations. I'm a fan of the boosters. But the reality is, I want to convince people. A neighbor of mine recently passed away from Omicron. This is some serious business. If someone chooses not to show self-control, self-respect, and addressing the problem, you may not know the person that you impact, that you, in effect, kill inadvertently. So government needs to take a different approach. We need to start encouraging people, showing on TV the failures of not being vaccinated, of not having your booster, and not wearing your mask. It's that simple.
So Nicolee, the more that these kind of proposals come out, do you think this is actually making a lot of, some people at least, that much more resistant because they don't respond well to that kind of pressure?
You're absolutely right, Mark. I can't tell you how many people I know who were willing to get vaccinated until the Biden administration and Joe Biden himself started standing up the White House podium, threatening people and telling people you're killing people without the vaccine. And once again, Omicron completely undermines all of these intellectual arguments. If you can get or give it with or without the vaccine, why on earth would the government try to push these mandates?
Well, let's kind of talk about just how polarized folks are, because, you know, Rasmussen has produced some frankly really astonishing poll numbers about just how polarized Americans are about vaccines. So 48% of Democrats say that the government should fine or imprison Americans who publicly question the COVID vaccine's efficacy. More than a quarter of Democrats say parents should lose custody of their children if they refuse the COVID vaccine. Cary, I mean, I was astonished by that, but Cary, what do you make of this divide? Are we really all that different?
I don't know. I just think people are running scared. I'm a Democrat all my life. It's a responsibility. It's a pandemic. I mean, people need to, politics needs to get out of the process. I don't care if you're a Republican. I'm not trying to take your rights away. You know, I'm concerned for my family. I'm concerned for my neighborhood. I'm asking you, please get vaccinated, get a booster, please wear your mask, protect my grandchild. It's that simple. We don't need to have a mandate. I don't want to scare you. I don't want to force you to do anything. I'm asking you, and I think most Democrats are doing that. They want you to just do the right thing.
I appreciate that, and it's interesting. So Nicolee, when with this polling, when independents and Republicans are included in the data, the most extreme measures that some people support become less popular. So again, this is Rasmussen. 59% of Democrats favor requiring citizens to remain confined in their home if they refuse to get a vaccine. But on the other hand, that's opposed by 61% of likely voters. So basically a reversal. And part of the reason for that is that 71% of unaffiliated voters oppose this sort of lockdown, mandatory lockdown. So what do you make of the support that this polling shows for some of the more extreme measures?
I'm terrified by it as an American. And I couldn't agree with Cary more that politics should stay out of this process. But also in this poll, there was a figure about wanting to put people in internment camps. No. Democrats wanting to put people in camps that are not vaccinated. So when I look at this, I'm wondering, where has our education system failed us? That people, Democrats in particular, are not learning from the lessons of history. I mean, we have not very far back to look at the Japanese internment camps of the 20th century in World War II, to look at Jim Crow laws, which is essentially exactly what Democrats are asking for, that we segregate our society by saying, sorry, you can't come in the restaurant. Sorry, you can't even go to the back of the bus. And by the way, we want to take your children away from you and put you in an internment camp. This is just terrifying stuff.
Let's be fair in that this was a in some cases a large segment of Democrats, and in other cases it was like a quarter. So it was not representative of all Democrats. That said, it was, I think, astonishing set of numbers to see that there were even some people who thought that was an option. You know, one of the things I thought about, Cary, is that we're having such an employment shortage. So if you set up camps like this, because I saw the same numbers, obviously, that Nicolee saw, how would they staff it? Who would even handle it? What would you do with the kids that you separated with? It makes no sense. I'll let you have a comment on that, Cary.
I think it's all fear-mongering, to be honest with you. Democrats are reasonable people. I mean, everyone that I've known, I've been involved, going back to Ida Mae Garrett was one of my first mentors. The bottom line is, yeah, you're going to get a few people that are scared and they're going to take the extreme measures. The majority of Democrats, all they want people to do, and I'm saying the large majority, all we want you to do is to show some respect for yourself, for me. Let's get past this virus. Let's do what it takes and party. I give up here. I'm not opposed to the Republican Party. I just think I want to work with you. I want our families to thrive, to succeed, to live. That's all.
And if I may, Cary, I really
Sure.
appreciate that. And of course, I've got lots of friends who are Democrats who are lovely, reasonable people. But the
Thank you.
problem is the nature of the Democrat Party is just being linked very far to the left because they're not making those numbers up.
Wait a second.
Certainly, I mean, my gosh, I have people in my own family that think vaccine passports are a great idea. It's hard for me to even be able to have a conversation with someone like that because that is not freedom. We are not a free America if we are requiring papers of people to leave their house. Like, is that not exactly what happened with the National Socialist Workers' Party in Germany in the 20th century that led to the extermination of 12 million people? Like, we have to learn lessons from history. And thank you for being a Democrat who's calling out people in your party who are acting really radical and extreme. Thank you.
Well, I wonder if some of this is really not so much as also the media, particularly the sort of clickbait media that has engaged in sort of, for lack of a better word, panic porn to hype COVID and has kind of encouraged some of the most extreme views on that. And there are frankly people who are perhaps more sensitive to that particular kind of message. When we come back from a short break, we'll talk about the governor's race. Welcome back. The big news in the Maryland governor's race this week is the release of the fundraising totals by the candidates. Cary, Democrat Wes Moore raised the most and has $3.1 million in cash on hand. Now that number is 4 times as much as Peter Francho has. That is the amount raised. Were you surprised, and what does that say about the race?
Well, we've got a lot of superstars running. That's the bottom line. When you're talking about, Wes Moore and Aruna Miller, she's very respected, dynamic lady, loved in Montgomery County and respected across the state. You got Peter Franchot, you got Tom Perez, John Kane. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. I think we're early in this race. And I can't help but thinking back to, Anthony Brown, nobody's entitled to anything. It's a long race. Our state, governor candidates need to get out into the communities. They need to talk to the public. That's how you win this. You can have all the money in the world. And guess what? You can fall flat.
Well, it certainly helps to have money, and I'll segue to you, Nicolee. Among Republicans, Kelly Schultz raised the most. However, again, among the Republicans, Robin Ficker had the second largest bank account. Frankly, I was a little surprised by that, $900,000, and that is several times the amount of cash, that the third candidate had. So, Nicolee, has Hogan's tacit support of Schultz helped her more than Donald Trump's backing of the third Republican, Dan Cox?
Sure, absolutely. But what also has really helped Kelly Schultz is that Larry Hogan's fundraiser is working for Kelly Schultz. So obviously, she has those same lists, she knows those same people, so that's really benefiting Kelly. I have to hand it to Robin Ficker for investing in his own campaign. Good to put your money where your mouth is. Right. And then thirdly, Dan Cox is a delegate and running for governor, and he's in session now. So he won't be able to raise during session, which is also certainly a challenge. And we've got the filing deadline coming up. So it's interesting times over here.
Well, we had the filing deadline coming up. So one of the challenges in all of this is that we'll see lieutenant governor candidates chosen. Now, you referenced the fact that Aruna Miller has been picked, and actually one of the interesting things was that again, because of the mechanics of the election law, the lieutenant governor's candidates can also raise money, and there was a fair amount of money that was in her campaign, although obviously allied with Westmore. Do you have any predictions, Cary, about lieutenant governor candidates?
I like Aruna. I mean, she's a hard worker. She listens to the community. She does her research. That's, to me, that's it in a nutshell. I'm just tired of the superstars that want to smile and say, I've done this and I've done that, when in reality, it's you got to work with the population. You got to include, the residents in your actions. And Aruna's done that. I think she'd make a fine lieutenant governor.
Well, Dan Cox has picked his lieutenant governor candidate. Kelly Schultz has not. Nicolee, you have any predictions there?
Well, it certainly has helped in Dan's case, because Gordana is traveling all over the state and is kind of vibrant personality who's very passionate on the issues, especially on the issue of schools, which is a hot topic, as we know, not only from our own personal experience here in the state, but it certainly helped determine a governor's race just south of us in Virginia. So I think that certainly is benefiting Dan, and I'm sure Kelly will benefit from the same boost when she chooses her lieutenant governor candidate. The key here is just whoever it is has to be very personable and have great relationship with the community and get out there.
I confess that was probably an unfair question, Nicolee, because I must say I don't particularly have any insights either as to who Kelly picks, and
well,
I was hoping you knew too. So,
I'm going to crack you up here. I introduced Robin Ficker to someone who wants to be his lieutenant governor candidate. So we'll see how it all goes.
Anyway, so let's just kind of change gears right now, and so the political blog Seventh State, which I certainly recommend to folks in Montgomery County, they've been reporting a complaint, or I should say complaints against the planning board on both open meeting violations and for lobby disclosure infractions. Now, Cary, I know you've been following this particular issue. Could you elaborate a little bit as to what's happening?
It's extremely complicated, and it all boils down to trust and confidence in your government. If you don't have trust, if you don't have confidence in your government, and they include and feel that they're including you, guess what? The game's over. We have two issues. One is the lobbyist registration, which the Park Planning Commission has been doing it for years, and we have a problem with Open Meetings Acts. Montgomery County Public Schools also have issues with Open Meeting Act violations. The county council has had it in the past, so that's not new to Montgomery County. But the reality is, we're doing a 30-year plan right now. Okay, it's a $1 trillion plan, and the one member of the county council said this one lobbyist has not only had a seat at the table, but it's been chairing the discussion. Now, if we're talking about a land use planning document that is that overarching, right? How does the public feel about a special interest, especially if they're developer special interest, having that much influence? There's more to it. The opens meeting, I mean, in today's Seventh State article, they came out and said that this one lobbyist knew better. But unfortunately, Mr. Cobb, he's our county ethics person, he essentially feels that, hey, you know what, there's gonna be no penalty. We're just gonna let them get away with it. We're just gonna force them to apply. And furthermore, the county council has had a meeting the other day, and in that meeting, they felt that these lobbyist requests will have a chilling effect on planning in Montgomery County. I got to tell you, I hope it does have a chilling effect. we need to get the community up, up and part of the discussion.
Well, Nicolee, I'll let you have the last word on this. What do we do to make these unelected administrative agencies more accountable?
You need a two-party system in Montgomery County. I have to say, every day Montgomery County is looking more and more like Baltimore City. And that's a sad thing. Montgomery County, right, used to pride itself on, oh, we are the elite county of Maryland. We keep everything in order. And you're being infested by that same mentality of no one can get to us. We are the elite monopoly party. We have utter and complete control. No one can question us. And so then they don't follow their own rules and regulations. And if you are the one Democrat who happens to call them on it, if they want to, they can ruin your life because once again, it's a monopoly. So I just really encourage people to consider having a bit more of a two-party system at all, even one person here or there that's from an opposing party to help call for audits. And Cary, I really do appreciate you. I wish all Democrats were as open-minded and reasonable as you.
Thank you.
We talked about the lobbyists, Cary, but let me come back to this open meeting violation. You would think in the time of COVID, where we have
Exactly.
Zoom calls and much
Easy.
more exposure, you would think that it would be just a easy thing to be able to make things that much more transparent by making the meetings open. And yet, as I read the response of the planning board, they said, "Oh, it's because of COVID that we can't have the open meeting and that we can't respond to that." So, what can I say? It really didn't make a lot of sense to me. When we return, and after a short break, we will have parting shots. Welcome back, and now for parting shots, Cary.
My parting shots about our Montgomery County Police, our heroes. They're facing a tough challenge here. Carjackings are up 78%, especially in our urban areas. Our police officers starting salary is lower than any surrounding jurisdiction, and we are understaffed. We have about half of the staff, or just under half of the staff that other jurisdictions around the county. We're asking them to do more with less. Chief Jones, my hat's off to you, sir, and thank you.
Nicolee.
So it is 2022, and this is a big year for Maryland to determine our direction with our General Assembly races and our race for governor. I'm hoping Maryland helps learn from our great experience with Larry Hogan and also from our neighbors to the south with Governor Youngkin's election. So if you're thinking of running for office, the filing deadline is February. I think it's a great time for us to make sure we instill a little more of that two-party tradition in this state that has benefited so much by two-party rule.
Well, thank you, Nicolee and Cary, and thank you for tuning in each and every week to IMC Media for Montgomery County's hardest hitting talk show, 21 this week.